Hey, Scott Spears here for WGH Talk Radio at the 79th running of the Little Brown Jug. 40th Treasurer of the United States, Mary Ellen Withrow, joins us. Superfan, ESPN Hall of Fame Buckeye guy is here with us, and of course the man who is the voice of the Little Brown Jug for the last 56 years, just wrapping up his 56th call of the big jug race here. Roger Huston, what a pleasure it is. This has become a tradition every year, Roger. It's good to see you. How was this year's jug?
Same as every year. Greatest day in harness racing in the Buckeye State, and definitely one of the greatest days in all of harness racing in North America.
How does this compare to other races that you call, the Little Brown Jug?
Well, they all are chasing the Little Brown Jug. This has to be number one. We started doing it a long time ago, continue to do it. And for me at least, I go over to Ireland every year and announce races over there, and I go up to Michigan, I go to New York, I go to Canada, all over Ohio, but there's nothing to compare us to the Little Brown Jug.
When it gets to the final race, the final turn, what's that like?
Well, it has nothing to do with the race. The way the track is situated and the way that the sun sits, that last eighth of a mile, I can't even hardly see the horses because the sun's shining right in your face. And it's like today, we got done, a little after 7 o'clock or right around 7, and it's really getting low. So there's not a way to get away from it. You're going to have to do it. And so what I do is usually is to put my program up here to kind of shade me a little, but you can't shade it too much because you still got to see the horses.
How many races have you called this week?
I'm only going to give you an estimate. It'll be pretty close. I'm guessing 15, 16, 31, 12, 36, 67.
67. Does it ever lose its excitement? No.
And this is probably hard for anybody to understand, but Sunday's races, even though it wasn't a jug, this is important to a lot of people as the jug, because every race has owners, trainers, drivers, caretakers, fans that are betting on that race. So you got to treat each race as the number one race at that particular moment.
Mary Ellen, we sat in here and watched this. What do you make of the Little Brown Jug? What is different about this race than any other?
Well, it's a fun race, and there's so many people that love to come every year and watch it. It's just part of our things that we do here in Ohio.
It's a spectacle.
Yeah.
It really is. Buckeye guy, why is this such an important thing to be at? It truly is a rite of passage.
I am going to piggyback off of the GOAT. Look, Mr. Huston said, every race is important, each and every time. It reminds me of when I'm at the football games, every little Johnny Joe, he needs a pitcher. We're going to give him our best shot each and every time. So he says he's called 67 or some odd races this week. Man, listen, this guy's the GOAT, guys. I'm telling you.
Roger, when you prepare for a race, what do you like to know before the race starts?
Names of the horses, names of the drivers, and associate the driver with each horse that he's driving. Because when you see the horse, you see the driver, the name of that combination has to come out of your mind just like this. You don't have time to think about it. So it's a memorization, and I can usually take a minute, 2 minutes to do it on a normal race. When you're talking about the jug, I guarantee I go a little further, maybe 3 or 4 minutes, where you study them up a lot harder, because the biggest race of the year, you don't want to goof it.
Yeah. Captain Albano, the big winner this year of the last race. What can you tell us about Captain Albano?
Well, Captain Albano, as a 2-year-old, he won 7 of 9, and I believe he was the 2-year-old pacer of the year last year. He won like 445,000, took a mark at 49 and something. He came back this year and he won 6 of 11. Now, what made this year kind of interesting was in his start previous to here was at Pocono Downs in Pennsylvania, and he was on top of the three-quarter pole, looked like he was going to win for fun, made a break, and they just said it was just a bad step or something like that. But still, you had in your mind, you hope nothing's wrong with the horse, you know. So he came over here. That was the one question you had on Captain Albano, and Noel Daly said that he's the trainer. He said there's no problem with him. It was just one of those quirks that happen, and you have to live with it. But he was superb today. Just did everything everybody wanted.
This was the 79th running. Next year, the big 80th anniversary. What does that mean? 365 days from now.
I wish it was tomorrow. I mean, when you leave this place, it's almost like hallowed ground. I do come back throughout the year because we have some qualifying races here in June. 2 weeks that we broadcast on Facebook for the Ohio Hunters Horse Association. I was here last Sunday, or a week ago Sunday, for the All Horse Parade in Delaware, and so I make a few stops each year there before the Jug, but there's nothing like Jug Week.
Now that it has ended, and just ended minutes ago, is there a bit of melancholy? Will there be a little bit of melancholy tonight now that it's over, or is there relief that you made it through another one?
There's relief that you made it through another, especially when you're 82 years old. I've always said this lately, the last couple of years once I turned 80. I always said to people before that, good Lord willing, the creek don't rise, I'll see you next year when I leave. But once I turned 80, I changed that phrase a bit.
Give it to me.
Good Lord willing, the creek don't rise, I'll see you next year. But that damn creek's getting deeper and deeper.
Roger, is there a point that you can think of that you would want to stop at? Certainly significant next year, the 80th year? Or do you want to go to the 90th?
Oh, no. We'll never make the 90th. I hope I make the 80th. And after the 80th, I hope I make the 81st. Take them 1 year at a time.
Do you want to hit 60 years of broadcasting the Jug?
No.
No?
That's not it. I mean, this is funny to say it, but I'd be totally happy right now if I never call another race.
Is that right?
Well, I mean, what more can I get out of life? I've had everything that I wanted. I've gone everywhere that I wanted to go. I don't have a bucket list or anything like that, so you really don't know when it's going to end and everything, but you just enjoy it, go as far as you can.
Roger, the last time we talked about a horse named Won the West, and you've called several of those Won the West, and his former owner, now deceased, Bill Robinson, was a great friend of mine, and he loved that horse. Tell me a little bit about Won the West.
Isn't he at the Kentucky Horse Park now?
Yes,
Isn't he?
that's so much he knows so much.
Well, after his racing days were over and everything, a number of top standard breds, thoroughbreds as well, taken residency at the Kentucky Horse Park just outside of Lexington.
Wow.
And I don't know how many visitors they have each year, but they have shows and displays, and fans can see the horses. And I think there's probably 5 or 6 standard breds that are there, and Won in the West is one of them.
Man.
Roger, what's the biggest misconception about horse racing?
It's hard. I really don't know how to answer that. Horses are just like people.
Yep.
Problem is, they can't talk to us. So you have to judge what they're saying by their actions and things like that. Do they eat all their feed? Do they don't eat any hay? Are they all of a sudden walking around in their stalls? Totally. They can't walk up to you and say, hey, my stomach hurts, or something like that. So you need a good trainer, you need a good caretaker that knows when that horse is feeling good. They'll race bad sometimes. And the first thing they do after a horse may race bad is scope them to see see if they bled or maybe some sort of congestion or something like that. So they really treat the horses the same as human beings. Human beings go to a doctor, they take the horses to the veterinarian to be checked out.
You know, this year, one thing we were talking about was the temperature. Upper 80s this year, usually not that warm when the jug happens. Do you think that had any impact this year?
No. Don't think it had any impact whatsoever. Just like when it gets real cold, I don't think the impact is as great as some people may think, because the track that I worked at for 45 years was the Meadows over in Pennsylvania, and they race year-round. So we raced with temperatures of 0, 5 below. They didn't cancel the races unless the wind chill was 20 below 0.
Wow.
And those horses race. They may not go as fast as they do in the summertime, but it doesn't affect the temperature probably doesn't affect them that much.
You know, Mary Ellen, an interesting thing as we sat here and watched a lot of the races today, one great thing about the jug is that it is broadcast on television. It's broadcast on YouTube. You can sit here, you can watch it, you can bet if you like on this side of the track, the opposite side of the track of the grandstand. It's really an accessible place.
It's very convenient, yeah.
Now, Mary Ellen, I want you to tell the story because as Treasurer of the United States, you presented a blanket to a horse one year at Circleville, you think. Tell that story. It's a very interesting story.
Well, I was going to present the blanket to the winner of the race. And we were standing there after the race was over, and the horse dropped over dead. And I think I told this story last year to him.
Yeah.
Because I think you asked me about it last year. Yeah, but the owner, of course, was very upset. And, yeah, it was a sad story.
You have to understand
One on the
this.
east side, one on the west side, one on the east side.
People involved in racing, they love that horse just like it's one of their
Yes.
They are the total protector of that animal. It's just like your pet dog or a kitten or something like that.
outside here, Montreal.
They
Yeah.
love those horses,
Thank you.
so it affects them like a human being. When they pass on, the same emotions go through as if it was a parent or something like that. I mean, my wife owned a horse that was he raced up through his 14th year, and he can't race his 15th. He was retired, and I think he was 18 or 19 years old, and he slipped on some ice and he was turned out one time, and they had to put him down because of both hocks and stuff. And that is a trauma event. I mean, it just drives you crazy. You wish, man, I wish I could have done something to prevent it, but it's life, just like with humans.
You know, Roger, what I was thinking today, obviously so many people bet on horse racing. Does the race drive the betting or the betting drive the race?
That's right.
That's a good question.
This guy asks too hard
He
questions.
does.
Both things. You couldn't have the races if you didn't have betting, because of the betting, the horses get so much money that goes to the purses. You couldn't have betting if you didn't have the horses.
Right.
Or you couldn't have betting unless you have football, or
Agreed.
basketball,
Agreed.
or whatever it is.
Agreed.
So it's a two-pronged situation.
When you're up there in the booth, is it like being at home?
On that big blockage.
Or do you still get nervous?
No, because I got a white shirt, tie, and dress
That's right,
pants and
that's right.
shoes on at home. I don't wear a white shirt, tie, dress pants, and shoes.
You know, Paul Harvey said one time in an interview that he showed up to work one day, because it was radio, and he showed up and he didn't wear a tie and he didn't wear a dress shirt and he dressed rather casual. And people could tell it in the way that he did his broadcast that day. So he started showing up every day in a tie and a white shirt. Do you think the clothes mean anything when you show up to do something?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll announce races in Bermuda shorts if I wanted to. Believe it or not, I wasn't dressed in a white shirt and tie Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. We didn't put on a dress shirt and suit coat and everything till Wednesday and Thursday, because those are the 2 big days. No, not really. I can announce barefoot if I had to. Of course, I don't go barefoot.
Roger,
I was raised on a farm. You don't go barefoot on a farm.
you don't know what you'll step in. Roger, what have you learned? More than a half century of doing this, what have you learned from this profession?
You're one step away from putting your foot in your mouth.
What are the calls that stick out in your mind that you did stick your foot in your mouth? It happens to everybody.
Oh, yeah. I can't tell you the one that happened this week because I'm the only one knows it happened.
Oh, really?
I mean, no, I'm not going to tell you.
You're not going to give it to us.
That's right.
The exclusive.
I may tell you when you stop the tape recorder,
Okay.
but I'm not going to say it on the
Not
air.
going to say it on the air.
But anyway, I went to Australia one time to call one race, and at that time they had hub rails around the racetrack. And one of my favorite sayings was, if a horse was locked in and he might be the favorite, you know, he's locked in and nailed to the rail or something like that. Well, it was the wrong horse that got nailed to the rail, so to speak. The horse's name was the Messiah. That was one. Another race at the Meadows, people in Lockburn, Ohio owned a horse known as Mr. Roberts, from the TV character, lived in Pittsburgh, famous person. And he got in a race with another horse one day. And I didn't put two and two together until they went to the half, and Mr. Rogers was set in second, and he tipped to the outside, and I said, and that's Mr. Rogers going after silk panties.
Oh, my. You know, I was thinking, I know you're not going to tell us what happened this year.
No.
Were people aware? Did somebody come to you and say, nobody caught it?
No.
Only you caught it.
I've always said this, if you make a mistake and you don't know that you made the mistake,
Right.
you better quit. Because you better know the mistakes you make, and if you don't, you're making mistakes, that's time to quit.
In your own mind, when it happened this year, what did you think to yourself?
When I did what I did,
When you did what you did?
man, I hope nobody heard that. or realized what I said, because it was just one word in 300 words.
That's right.
Right. You know, and that's, it
It was
happens.
the wrong word.
Well, you know, it happens to everybody. It happens to everybody. What toll does this week take on your voice?
I'll let you tell me that. What's it sound like
You
today?
sound pretty good.
I would say that I probably finished this week probably in the top 5 or 10 over those 56, 57 years. Like I said, I kind of paced myself, and that's why I only did 12 on Sunday and 12 on Monday and 12 on Tuesday, and went up to 15 on yesterday. And I'm not sure exactly, what do we have, 21 races today?
Yeah.
Jason did 6, so I did 15 again today.
Wow.
It's just pace yourself. And a lot of Hall's eucalyptus cough drops.
They help you along.
You know what COVID did?
What's that?
I used to be able to do 3 races with 1 cough drop. In the mouth for 1 race, put it back in for the second race. Last race, it'd get small and you'd swallow and stuff. Since COVID, I can only get 2 races because they've reduced the size of the cough drop. And I can testify to that because the other thing is, every race that I announce, I have a Hall's eucalyptus dry in my mouth. I'm about ready to put another one in now because this one's getting pretty small. But when I filed my taxes this year, and I don't know why I did it, but I put down on my taxes $185 for Hall's eucalyptus cough drops. And my tax accountant said, "What in the world is this?" So it's one of those things.
It's one of those work-related things. It's a work-related thing.
It is work-related. I carry them in my binocular case, believe it or not, and I buy the 80-pack and dump them in there with my binoculars, so I've always got them when I announce races. I usually don't use them in just regular life, but any place I go to announce basketball, football, lacrosse. I did lacrosse this year, believe it or not.
Was that hard?
I don't know anything about it, but it was just like doing the PA at a football game or something like that.
Yeah.
There was a up in Hickory, Pennsylvania.
Hickory.
Yeah, up by Sharon, PA. And I don't know, well, it goes back further than that. In 1976, when I first went to the Meadows, the sports information director at the University of Pittsburgh brought his girlfriend to the track to have dinner on a Wednesday night. The first game of the season in 1976 for Pitt was played in the rain in Louisville, Kentucky. And they won, but the quarterback broke his leg, and that's when Matt Cavanaugh took over as quarterback for the Pitt team. And he was at the races on Wednesday night. Thursday morning, I get a phone call from him. He says, "You don't know me, but my name's Dean Billick, and I was at the track last night. Have you ever done football?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I did it back when I was working at high school and PA work. I did play-by-play on radio. I've done that. Yeah, I do." He says, "Well, this is after one game. One game, the record was 1-0. And Dean Billick says, "We are going to be the national champion this year."
They were.
Well, they were. It says Tony Dorsett.
Tony Dorsett was running back. What was the linebacker's name? He was Hugh Green?
No, Hugh didn't come on in 76. Hugh was a freshman, I think, in
awesome?
77 or 78. Yeah, I'll tell you the Hugh Green story because that's a good one too.
Is that awesome?
But anyway, he says we're going to be the national champion, and he says we got 55, 60,000 people there every day for the game, and we got to stir things up and make it more lively at Pitt Stadium. And so I did those in 1976, and I finally quit in '83. And the reason I had to quit is that is the time that they started going to Thursday night college games and Saturday night college games, and I couldn't justify taking a night off at the Meadows to do a Pitt football game. So I gave up Pitt football and basketball and them. Now, Hugh Green.
Yes.
When I do PA, I always look for an Italian or something like that to play with the name, just anything. And all of a sudden, I'm thinking that year, there's no Italians on this football team. What am I going to do? And then all of a sudden, tackle was made by number 99, Hugh Green. Next play, tackle made by number 99, Hugh Green. And I'm thinking, and I remember baseball. Boog Powell.
Boog, I know Boog. Boog.
And when he would step to the plate to bat, the fans would start saying, "Boog, Boog, Boog." So I said, why can't I do that with Hugh? Yes. And before he graduated as a senior All-American, all I had to do was at Pitt Stadium say, "The tackle made by number 99," and the fans would yell, "Hugh!" And I'd yell Green. So
he was one heck of a player. And by the way, that was one heck of a team that you called. National championship. I'm following him all the way. My favorite player of all time. Man, Tony Dorsett was, then he left and went straight to the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, the one thing is, I knew him at Pitt as Tony Dorsett. All of a sudden, he changed his pronunciation of his last name to Tony Dorsett.
Okay.
You know why?
No.
He got interviewed by Phyllis George on ABC, and she kept calling him Dorsett. And Tony, man, that sounds good. So he changed the way he pronounced his name.
Bucket Guy, what to you makes an announcer, a broadcaster exciting? You want to listen to him.
Action. If you got action, like you said, listen, the GOATs, I'm sitting right here next to him. If you got action coming down the stretch, like 3/4 length, man, you got 2 or 3, it's a photo finish, you get action, then you can actually make it sound. You want the radio audience. Years ago, it was just radio. It wasn't always television. So you had to be the eyes and ears of your audience.
Yeah. I remember when I started listening to baseball, I don't think any of you guys this old.
Years ago.
But Wade Hoyt was the announcer for the Cincinnati Reds back in the 50s. And at that time, maybe even I don't know when they changed it to be different. I'll get to it. But you could hear the ticker tape in the background. And you would hear
Tick, 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 tick.
Hey, it's a line drive to center field. Oh, he makes the catch. He's getting everything on ticker tape because he wasn't even at this ballpark
At the time.
He was calling the game in the studio in Cincinnati, Ohio, and that's one thing. So you can do it, and that's the way how it's changed over now. They're all there. There was actually, didn't ESPN a few years ago do some football games where the commentators and play-by-play guy was in the office of
Yes,
ESPN.
yes, yes.
They weren't anyways near the thing. And that takes us to harness racing, because I did the same thing. I'm not sure what year it was, but in 1983, we started broadcasting the races at the Meadows on TV every night, because we had what is called call-a-bet wagering. People could watch on the cable company in Pittsburgh. 1 million homes were hooked up to the cable, and they could actually wager in their living room on the races at the Meadows. And the state of Virginia, a guy came to me and he says, could you take your show on the road? And I says, yeah. We actually did 47 broadcasts in 38 different locations or something like that, in other states or where. Like I could be at Richmond, Virginia, calling the Meadows races from there. I wasn't even at the Meadows. So we did that to promote harness racing in the state of Virginia, and before they actually had pari-mutuels in Virginia to bet on the horses.
Did you notice any difference in your broadcast when you were there as opposed to not being there?
Yes. At the racetrack, you're in the announcer's booth and there's no access to the people. We were doing a remote one night in Moon Township in Pittsburgh. And I'm right in the middle of a horse race, and the guy comes up to me and says, "Hey, buddy, where's the rest?" So,
That's a little different. You know, Roger, in the interview we did last year, one of the most commented about things that we talked about, you talked about your family.
Yep.
And you said that they know that horse racing, your career, comes first. Talk about that and elaborate a little on that. That was very interesting to people.
it's resulted in 2 divorces
Well,
over the years. Well, there were other reasons. I shouldn't blame them for that. But the first story I'll tell is my daughter, Neville. My birthday is September 16th. And that year, the racing started here in Delaware, I think on September the 17th or the 18th. So Barb was pregnant, full 9 months, and I think they take, she wasn't a full 9 months yet, but they do what is a cesarean section 2 weeks before the due date.
Prior to.
And that 2 weeks fell just at the right spot. So my daughter Neville was by C-section on September the 16th, the same birthday as mine. And people thought we did it for that. No, the reason we did it is the 17th I had to leave for Delaware, Ohio. And that's another thing. I wanted to name, Neville is named after a horse by the name of Neville Pride. So we had Neville Huston, the pride of the Huston family. And my wife would not agree to a Neville being her name until she saw it. Now that sounds like she might have had to look like a horse to be named Neville. Oh, that's not terrible, but as soon as she saw it, yeah, we'll go with Neville.
We'll grab
by
it
the
real
way,
quick.
I think Neville is the only Neville in all the United States.
There's Tony Dorsett right there in Dallas Stadium.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know that you called that championship team.
I tell you, we've got to step out here for just a second. I just got the 2-minute warning. We're going to come back with the other story from Roger Huston, learn where he got the name The Voice, and then wrap up this year's Little Brown Jug right after this. Mary Ellen Withrow with us as well. Hey, Scott Spears back here at the 79th running of the Little Brown Jug. Everything has just wrapped up. We are with ESPN superfan Buckeye guy, 40th President of the United States, Mary Ellen Withrow, and the voice himself, Roger Huston, who has just completed his 56th year here at the 79th running of the Little Brown Jug. Roger, you were telling us 2 stories. We got one in before the break about family life and career life. What was the other story?
I told you about Neville.
You did.
I don't know what I was thinking of at that time. There's been so many things that have happened over the years. Oh, this was just the problem of doing broadcasts away from the racetrack. I was doing a broadcast at Moon Township, not Moon Township, this was at Harmer Township, south north of Pittsburgh, and we lost the TV signal as the horses were at the top of the stretch.
No.
The signal, the video. But my audio was still going out at the Meadows, and I called the race perfectly the last eighth of a mile without ever seeing it. I had the correct winner, second and third place horse, because I just made up how I thought they were going to finish, and I was right for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Roger,
That scared me to death though when we lost the video.
I bet so. Well, when you look back on this, are there any regrets with that the career came first?
Well, yes and no. I miss birthdays.
Yeah.
Miss some holidays, not so much, but important things. Like I've only been with my daughter probably 10 times on her birthday in 40 years. So that's when she came to Delaware for the jug. But no, those things you miss, but I wasn't there for their births and things like that.
Just to tick off a quick few things here, how did you get the nickname The Voice?
That came about in 1976. Tom Rooney was the publicity director at the Meadows, and he had to say something, so he dubbed me as The Voice when I first moved there, and it just held on. This is another, be there.
Be
Always say be there. That came about, we were recording commercials, and the commercial came up about 5-6 seconds short, and we couldn't think of how to finish it. Now all of a sudden I said, oh yeah, I got it. So they did the take, and I did the regular commercial, and at the end I said, be there! And it held on.
It stuck.
Nice.
It stuck. Do you have any other signature calls that stick out?
I probably do, but one driver, Tony Hall's good, a friend of mine, a favorite, and I love it when he's dead last because I can say, and that's Tony Hall, and he can see them all.
Roger, 100 years from now, when people look back at your career and see your picture in here and all the great things you've done, see the broadcast booth, how would you like people to remember you?
Would you quit asking hard questions?
I know, it's one of those nights.
I don't know. That I loved what I was doing, that I did it the right way. I don't know. I really don't. I just hope that I satisfied a lot of people over the years with the calls, and they loved the way I announced. And I know I have some critics out there, everybody does, but I think the people that like the way I announce far outnumbers the critics. And that's it.
What's the best way to deal with criticism for any young broadcaster?
No, criticism drives me crazy. It really does. It hurts.
Roger.
It hurts. But you can't show that it hurts. So it's all on yourself. Last year, I was a little slow and deliberate in calling the final of the jug. And they tore me up right and left on Facebook because it didn't sound like the regular Roger Huston. But I was slow and deliberate, and the reason was that dang sun right in my eyes. And so I was a little cautious of what I was saying, and it really hurt because a few people not only said that I should quit and hang it up. My day is past.
That's certainly not true.
It hurts, but you got to learn to live with the pain.
So even at this age and stage, it still bothers you?
Oh, yeah.
You never get over that?
No, you never do.
It is interesting, though, when we talked the other morning, it's fascinating because if you were 45 and they said that, it would not be considered age. But because you're in your 80s, now it's age.
Yeah, but it would hurt even when I was 45.
Right.
Don't get me
That's right.
wrong. It still hurts then, it hurts at the beginning. When I first started out, everybody, including my uncle who got me started, says, slow down, don't talk so fast. Well, I wasn't comfortable slowing down, and I kept the pace that I was comfortable with rather than doing what some people told me to do. And that's what I tell every youngster when he wants to be an announcer or something. And out there I've got 34 guys that in some way I helped their career somewhere along the line. And I tell them all, don't try to copy me, be comfortable in the way you do it, because that's the way to be a good announcer.
Mary Ellen, when we came in here today, we've been here the last 3 years, you said you just like to come and hear Roger talk. You
I
like to
do.
hear his voice. What do
Yes.
you think it is?
Well, he's got a good voice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's why they call me the voice.
That's why they call you the voice, and they named you aptly right. And it's great entertainment. When we turned on the television earlier, it's a distinctive voice. You knew it, even when the volume was low. It's very distinct, and that's a positive thing.
Yeah.
Buckeye Guy, what's your memories here of the 79th running of the Little Brown Jug? What are you going to remember?
When Roger comes in, I get a chance to sit next to the goat, and he's telling great stories. And impromptu meetings, guys walk in from England, young folks,
They were here.
drivers. He knows them by name. Talked about Tony Dorsett. So it's the whole encompassing of his whole career. So that gives me a spotlight down at the end of the tunnel saying, Buckeye Guy, you keep on grinding.
One night at the Meadows, and this was before TV, the announcer's booth was about 3.5 feet wide, 5 or 6 feet deep. I had Mark May
Whoa, he's gotta be that big.
on his knees looking out the front of the ring. I had Sal Sinceri over my left shoulder. I had Tony Dorsett over
my
my
God.
right shoulder, and a very young Dan Marino was standing behind me.
Wow.
Not a bad group.
That's a bunch of pit.
Two things to wrap up the broadcast here, Roger. Finish this sentence. Roger Houston is.
More hard questions, man.
I know.
Why don't you say Roger Houston? Well, I wouldn't look either. I don't think about things like that. I don't know what word I want to use, but I'm not fake.
No.
Not phony.
So Roger Houston is not phony.
That's a good way. Before we wrap it up here, Roger, can you give us one last call? We do this every year from the Little Brown. I know. The last thing, the end,
This is the one thing I hate.
as we wrap her up here.
They got 1/8 of a mile to go. Captain Albano has the lead. Closing on the outside. Here comes Dexter Dunn and Mirage Hanover at the wire. Captain Albano wins the 19.
That's great. No, you got it.
He didn't win the 19.
No.
It was the 21st.
Close enough. Good enough. Good
Hell of a
enough.
call. Hell of a call, Rob.
Absolutely. 40th Treasurer of the United States, Mary Ellen Withrow, ESPN Hall of Fame superfan Buckeye Guy, and the voice himself, a tradition here, Roger Houston. Always a pleasure, Roger. Thank you so much each and every year for coming over doing this. Scott Spears from the Little Brown Jug heading for the dugout.